What is up, guys? Delboy here. So Terence Crawford versus Jeff Horn, that was supposed to go down on April the 14th, has been postponed. Apparently this is due to a hand injury sustained by Terence Crawford. Now the question I'm going to ask is, does anybody really believe that was a hand injury? Or do you think this fight was pulled because of zero interest? I mean, we're like a month away and there wasn't even an arena scheduled for this fight. That says it all to me. You know, Bob Arum was scrambling to try and get Manny Pacquiao on the undercard to sell tickets and to sell pay-per-view because he knows that Crawford can't do it on his own. He doesn't really have a fan base apart from in Omaha. They're the only people who buy his tickets. They're his only fans, because we see a lot of people fronting in the YTBC saying how they're so behind Terence Crawford and they love what he's doing, but you know, maybe these guys should buy some tickets, you know? Maybe they should actually support their fighters in a tangible way. But yeah, I don't believe that this was a hand injury at all. I feel that there was no interest in this fight. And again, it goes to show, I've said this before on this channel, it's the champion that makes the belt. And you really can't fool the casual fan. I mean, people know that for Jeff Horn he's essentially a paper champion. He won the belt by defeating Manny Pacquiao in a very controversial decision where the vast majority of people thought that Jeff Horn lost. That's the reality. The casual fan hasn't forgotten that. The casual fan will remember watching that fight on ESPN where Teddy Atlas goes mad, calls out corruption, calls out the BS decision. Do you think the casual fan is going to forget that? When they think of Jeff Horn, they're going to think of the guy who won the title by a terrible decision. That's what they think when they think about Jeff Horn. They don't see him as a legitimate champion. That's the reality. And it goes to show again, when you try and force fights to appear better than they really are, or you try and convince people that these fights are more important than they really are, that's when you look stupid and that's when you leave with egg on your face. The reality is, this fight between Terence Crawford and Jeff Horn, it's a solid fight for Terence Crawford's first fight at welterweight, and that's it. It's not a evenly matched fight. It's a fight where one fighter is a significant favourite. People know Jeff Horn is the weakest champion in the division, and it's not an intriguing fight. It's just not. Nobody's going to say in 20 years' time when Crawford beats Jeff Horn, oh, what a great win that was. Nobody's going to say that. And the belt, just because Jeff Horn has a belt, it doesn't make him a better fighter, people. And again, the people who really pushed this a few months ago, listen, you're looking a bit silly. This fight is not a big deal, people. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal, man. And like I said earlier, when you try and force fights to be, or when you try and convince people that fights are more significant than they really are, you look a bit silly, because, again, you Crawford fans are bad for it because you did the same with Ndongo versus Crawford. I said that the fight was good because it was a unification and the winner would be undisputed, but the fight itself wasn't that good. And ultimately, that's the only thing that really matters. Like, again, in 20 years' time, Crawford versus Ndongo, yeah, they're going to see the little sort of highlights on BoxRec that it was for the undisputed super lightweight championship, but nobody's going to be saying in 20 years' time how great that Ndongo win was, because Ndongo's not a great fighter. And I said that at the time. Just because it was a unification fight and it was a fight to become the undisputed champion, it didn't make it a better fight than it was. You had a guy in Ndongo who beat a shot Ricky Burns, and he beat a guy in Troy Yanafsky who beat nobody. That's the reality. You had a guy in Crawford who was a known commodity fighting a guy who had not proven anything despite having 2 belts. Just because he had belts didn't make him a better fighter, doesn't make it a better win, and again, people at the time tried to make it out to be something it wasn't. It was a mismatch, and the fight played out as such. I was right. I said at the time that it wasn't a great fight. I said at the time, people at the time was making out like this fight was more significant than Canelo versus Golovkin. I'm serious, they were saying that Crawford and Ndongo was this great event for boxing. No, it wasn't. It was a mismatch. I said it at the time. I was right. In hindsight, we saw that Indonga got ruined by Prograis. So I was right about that. I'm right, and I was right about this Jeff Horn thing. Nobody really cares about Jeff Horn. Everybody sees him for what he is. He's an average fighter who happens to hold a world title. That's just the reality. You can't polish a turd. You can't... It's hard to fool the casual fans. It's a lot easier to fool the hardcores. It really is. Terence Crawford versus Jeff Horn is not a great fight. It's an okay fight. It's a good fight for Crawford's first fight at welterweight. But that's it. It's not a significant fight. It's not a fight where in 20 years' time we're going to be looking back at it and saying, well, that's a great win for Crawford. You know, it is what it is. It's a mark in time fight that happens to have a title on the line. That's the reality. Titles do not make fighters better. They don't make fights better. It's always been that way. Peace.